Do the Alabama Crimson Tide's road woes of late have you concerned heading into Starkville?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, we got some breaking news about a future opponent we'll talk about in just a bit. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors, by the way. But for now, I think you had a great post on Bama Online for which you are a contributor. Dare I say owner?
No, you don't dare say that. They'll start blaming me and not Tim for stuff.
That's true. So you had a good post about Alabama and the recent road games that they've had since 2021. And I'm trying to get the post up now. And it is very, very interesting.
Disturbing.
Disturbing is a much better adjective. Now listen to this, everybody. And I know this is stuff you all could look up, but when you see it all grouped together, it should scare the bejesus out of you a little bit. The last 10 road games starting in 2021 at Florida, 31-29. It should be noted Alabama started out with a huge lead in that game, and Florida crept back in it. At Texas A&M, it should be noted, that was a game I attended, that Alabama, though they were behind most of the game, they end up taking the lead late in the game, and they give up the lead and ultimately lose the game. Then at Mississippi State, 49-9. Hey, good. Much better, more Bama-esque. At Auburn, 24-22, another game I attended, not trying to pat myself on the back. I just like people to know I'm pretty important. But a game that should not have been close. I mean, Alabama went on to win the SEC championship. Auburn was coached by Brian Harsin and quarterback by T.J. Finley. You do the math. 2022, Alabama beats Texas 20-19. They beat Arkansas 49-26, but as you point out very astutely, it was 28-26 in the fourth. At Tennessee, they lose on a field goal. We all know about that. They probably should have won the game. I know, but I'm just telling you. At LSU, 31-32 on a two-point conversion. At Ole Miss, 30-24, and Ole Miss was driving to win the game. Then this year at South Florida, 17-3. The average score of the last 10 games on the road is 34-26. That includes a 49-9 shellacking of Mississippi State.
Yeah, I mean it's disturbing. And it's over several seasons. So it's not like oh, well, they're on a little bit of a slide. I mean, this is Alabama played terrible on the road in 2021, in 2022, and so far in 2023. I would almost argue that South Florida game was almost like the worst of all of it. I mean, offensively. And again, I need to say that every time because the defense played well in Tampa. Now, why? Well, I suppose we're supposed to have the answers, aren't we? We're the hosts of Locked On Bama. It's hard to come up with an answer as to why it's that bad. I think a couple of things, though. There's never one explanation. Everybody always says, okay, well, who's the boogeyman? Who can we blame here? It's usually several things. Let's start with this. I'll be the first to admit that Alabama is post-2020 is not what Alabama was. I mean, in terms of the results on the field, they just haven't been the same. So that's number one. It's not the height of the Saban dynasty right now. Number two, some of it's some bad scheduling luck. We seem to be in one of those things where, we sort of have the same road schedule every other year, right? And it almost seems like every other year these teams are good. It's not like those games that Luke went over there. Those are all good teams. Where's our road game against Vandy? Where's the road game against a terrible Missouri team? Frankly, this Mississippi State team that we're playing this weekend is about as bad, for lack of a better term, than any team we've played on the road in 3 years. That's why I think Alabama's going to win this weekend and it not be super tight or a loss, in part because of the schedule. I don't think this is a vintage Mississippi State team, and I think it's getting to be a vintage Alabama defense. So I do think the schedule has some to do with it. And thirdly, our defense hasn't been good since 2018, or not up to Alabama standards good. And again, I've gone over that 1,000 times here. I think it mostly has to do with the type of offense that they practice against every day. That's changed. And now we see the defense is changing.
Yeah, the defense is changing. I feel like that, Mississippi State is a good matchup for us this weekend. I mean, they're less air raid, even though they went sort of air raid against South Kakalaki, and they may migrate that way. But I feel like whatever it is, it's good for Alabama. I mean, this is not a super mobile quarterback we're going to be dealing with, and we're just now getting into our groove of pressuring the quarterback again. It seems like that's something that's been missing for quite a bit, specifically against Texas and some of those other road games you mentioned. So I feel like this is a good matchup for us. I feel pretty confident about this weekend. Of course, we'll have our predictions a little bit later on, but I guess just I thought about, when you think about each one individually, you can explain away, the Florida, hey, look, we sort of got ahead and then took our foot off the gas kind of excuse. Or you can talk about Tennessee. Well, I mean, they sort of had a bogus call on pass interference that led us to, we probably win the game, or we probably win the game if Bill O'Brien calls one running play towards the end. Okay. Or you can say, hey, the defense just had a mental lapse against Texas A&M, and that team did go on to play for a national championship, so we need to give them some credit. Or you can say Auburn in 2021, Auburn always treats the Iron Bowl a little bit differently than we do. I mean, that was sort of their bowl game, or at least not their bowl. I think they played in a bowl that year, so maybe it was sort of their Super Bowl, and it was just a stepping stone for us going to the SEC championship. You want to throw all those excuses out there? Hey, man, go for it. But when you see all this stuff grouped in together, it's no longer something you can excuse. It is a 100% trend.
Yeah, it's the last 10 road games. The margin of victory is what, 6 points, 8 points, and that includes a 40-point win in there. That's altering the math significantly. There are 3 losses. There could have been others. But some of those 3 losses could have been wins. I mean, it's not. Hey, and here's one more thing to look at. We're always comparing Alabama to Alabama, and I'm always complaining, Luke, that people out there compare Alabama to Alabama when we should be being compared to other schools. Here I am doing the same thing, committing the same sin I'm always complaining about. My point that I'm making here is, look at most Power 5 teams and see what they've done over their last 10 road games. This Alabama record ain't going to look so bad compared to what everyone else does on the road in their conference games. In Power 5 football, there's only going to be a handful of schools that are better than 7-3. Maybe, I mean, just off the top of my head, I would bet there might be 10 to 12, maybe 15 at the most, which makes you a top 20 program, even on the road. So it's bad, very much bad compared to previous Alabama standards. It's not terrible compared to college football in general.
Well, and in our defense, that's sort of the way Saban is conditioned us, is to compare us to us. Don't compare us to other teams. And so
play to the standard. Yeah. Play to the standard. He says that all the time.
So, I mean, you got to have both. I mean, if we're going to talk about the standard, and I think what you're saying is 100% accurate. And again, it's explaining away a trend. But if we've been taught by Saban, and we bought in 100% to be a fan to the standard, just like we expect the players to be a standard.
I'm not painting my face. I'm wearing that Mad Max Fury Road outfit. Nope.
I got you. All right, Jimmy, when we come back, I want to talk some recruiting information, both football and a little basketball. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Right now, I want to tell you about DoorDash. Look, if you're missing the syrup for your pancakes, or you just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer, I've done that many a time because I love, hey, it's pumpkin spice season, baby. I'm going to DoorDash me some pumpkin spice creamer. There ain't no doubt about it. All you got to do is get with DoorDash delivery. You can get what you want. You can right when you need it. Love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door. That's DoorDash delivery. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. You'll get exactly what you ordered or we'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them yourself. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at checkout. Limited time offer. Terms do apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and the 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. All right, Jimmy. So recruiting-wise, got some interesting stuff out there. First of all, our main man, Andrew Bone, put some – yeah, Bone. He put some stuff out there. And very interesting for Micah Dubose.
Yes, I am a big fan.
Big fan. He's a 5-star by some services for not the 24 class, but the 25 class.
He's a 25er.
And huge player at Viger. I love anybody from Viger, by the way. If you're at Viger and we're
true story. When about 3/4 of the way through his 8th grade season at Viger, a friend of mine that attends a lot of high school practices sent me a photo. He's actually a Viger guy, and he sent me a photo. It says, we got a pretty good-looking 8th grader out here. And he showed me the picture, and I'm like, I would offer this kid right now. I'm not kidding. I would offer him right now if I was Alabama. And all I saw was a practice photo in the 8th grade. But I did get to see him play. He played in the state championship game. He was Viger's starting right tackle in the state championship game in the 8th grade. That's how talented and huge and athletic this kid is. Committed to Georgia, but I wouldn't say we have him on flip watch at BOL, but it's something that we ultimately predict will happen ultimately.
Well, it's funny. Andrew Bone basically said the same thing. Like, he's not on flip. I'm not saying he's on flip watch, but I'm not saying he's on flip watch. So right. I think we can all read between the lines there. And that's wonderful because he is one of the top players in Alabama for that particular class. And he's an offensive lineman, and we need some offensive linemen with attitudes. And I can tell you this, if you're an offensive lineman at Viger playing in Mobile all the time with those athletes, you got an attitude. 100%.
Especially in the 8th grade.
Nobody.
Just imagine being tough enough to play city football in Mobile against big schools in the 8th grade.
Exactly. I mean, nobody says, you know what Viger's offensive line is? They're super nice. No, they say they blow you off the ball and then tell you how much they're going to do it again in just a second. Viger is just a fantastic program, a well-oiled machine. They're always in the middle of it. The only thing Viger's never good at, and I've noticed because I've seen them play in several state championships, they just never have a kicker. They never have one.
No, I don't have a kicker.
It's so funny because a lot of times they just end up going for 2, and a lot of times they get it. But they are just that is just one of my favorite programs in the state of Alabama. I love Viger. I just do.
Great history. Great history. The present's fine, but the history is great.
But I mean, they got such pride about their program too, and that's what's so cool. And that's why when you get a Viger dude, you're getting a dude. You're not. Hey, I mean, he may be a nice person off the field. He may be, but
I've been 2 or 3 times, and the best high school game I've been to in terms of like, if you're going to go to a game in Alabama, the Viger Blunt game, the Battle of Pritchard, is a scene, man. And it is packed. One year, by the way, and this just to show how big Viger Blunt is, one year they played basketball. Well, both basketball teams were good. That doesn't happen all the time. But both basketball teams were really good, played each other in the state playoffs in the Mitchell Center, and sold out the Mitchell Center where the Jags play. And there's like hundreds of people outside the Mitchell Center. At the time, the Jags can get 2,000 people to go to a game. And Viger Blunt, every seat, people standing outside watching it on screens. Yeah, they love their ball of Richard, man. It's awesome.
And it really, I'll tell you, Viger is an example to me of why Alabama and Auburn, and really, I guess, most of the Southeast will always have an advantage. When everybody says they want parity in college football, this is why it's never going to be the same for everybody else around here. Viger is one of those programs where it just means more. I hate to steal something from the SEC, but it just means more. And again, circling back to Alabama, when you get a dude you remember Nudie, Nudie was a fantastic player for Alabama. Jalston Fowler, and he was just rough and tumble. And no, he wasn't the best player we've ever had, but pretty doggone good. And he would do anything to make us win. That's what I loved about him. And I think Micah Dubose is kind of that same dude. There was also some talk from Andrew Bone on 3 about Alabama still kind of pursuing Kevin Riley from Tuscaloosa, who's committed to Miami. And, of course, Daniel Hill. There's still some talk about Daniel Hill, no telling what he's going to do. Really want him desperately, but, man, I just don't know how that's going to end up.
But they're such different backs. Those are the 2 backs at the top of the board, but they're so different. Daniel Hill, a big, giant, physical, move the chain, short yardage guy, red zone guy, big, physical, kind of a B-Rob, type. And Kevin Riley, home run hitter, a little bit like maybe Jase, a little bit, in terms of like Kevin Riley, he's going to deliver you some 80-yard touchdowns here and there.
And again, I'm not saying your comparison's wrong. I'm just ready for Jase to hit another home run. He hadn't hit a home run
he's
Texas last year.
100-yard game, though, last week. He's coming around. Alabama, back-to-back games with a running back with 100 yards. It's not always going to slap you in the face. Sometimes there's just signs. Sometimes there's signs. And I think there are signs the running game's coming around.
I agree. All right, basketball. We got to talk about this for a minute. Huge pickup for Nate Oats and company. Aiden Sherrill, 5-star by On3, high 4-star by most everybody else. No lower than number 32 in the country for anybody. He's number 14 in the country, On3. The highest rated big man in Alabama history that they've signed. Now, I would argue that Antonio McDyess was probably miscalculated if that's the case, because McDyess was a dude's dude.
I think McDyess might have been before the recruiting services.
That's very true.
Recruiting services only go back to really 04, 05, somewhere in there.
And also, you didn't have all the access that you have now. But anyway, this kid, 6'11", 220 from Prolific Prep, originally from Detroit, Michigan. And, hey, there's Nate Oats ties right there, the whole Michigan thing. And he's trying to recruit one of his teammates, Reed, who's one of the top players, a top 10 player in the country. So Alabama basketball is still doing its thing. And I'm going to tell you something, Jimmy. The more I get into this Nate Oats thing, and I'm going to do a mea culpa real quickly. There's an Alabama basketball board on Facebook that I'm a member of. And when Alabama lost a game, I can't remember, maybe to Western Kentucky. Early in his career, and I was like, maybe Nate Oats isn't who we thought he was. And my buddy Brian Pasick, who does the color for Alabama, has never let me forget I said that. Of course, I said it very stupidly in the heat of the moment, but I'm going to tell you something. Nate Oats has quickly become my favorite Alabama basketball coach of all time, and he's doing things that I never expected Alabama to be able to do. We'll get to a Final Four. Don't worry about that. We've already been ranked number one in the NCAA tournament. We're getting 5 stars from Detroit, Michigan. We're going to get some more 5 stars in this class. Y'all just, if anybody is worried about Nate Oats for any reason, don't be. He's a badass. And
he's done for Alabama basketball what Nick Saban did for Alabama football.
Agreed.
Except for this. Nick Saban resurrected an Alabama football we had, in fact, seen before in the past. Nate Oats has invented the wheel. It's never been this good. And there's Aiden Sherrill right there. Wow, what a player. And, for basketball, here's basketball recruiting gold, Luke. I mean, football recruiting gold is quarterback, maybe defensive lineman. For basketball, it's big men, yes. But how about this term? Skilled big men. Big men that are basketball players. Here's a kid that can shoot the ball. Here's a kid that can rebound. Here's a kid that can run and jump. Here's a kid that has an incredible wingspan that can play. How many 6'11" guys in the old days could play multiple positions? But here's a kid who could play the 3. He can play the 4. He can play the 5. He can play different versions of the 4 and the 5. But again, a skilled big man. That is recruiting gold.
Yeah, I'm so fired up about what's coming down the pike for Alabama basketball. And then when you think about this year playing Arizona out in Phoenix, I really want to try and go to that. I want to try and go to Purdue and Toronto. I want to. I'm not saying I'm going to. I want to. But anyway,
so Toronto, you should get some sort of an award. I mean, I'm serious. Any Alabama basketball fan from the state of Alabama that travels to Toronto for that game needs to be like permanently hard-headed or something.
That's a dang good point. Now, when we come back, we want to talk about some of that news that's sort of breaking here about a future opponent for Alabama, and also talk about some other things just around the SEC. Right now, though, I want to tell you about Jase Medical, the Jase case. I got mine the other day. Love this thing. My wife was so excited about it. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jase case is fill out a simple online form, and in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of our board-certified physicians. Get ongoing care from our physicians on any treatment-related questions. It's doctor-created and doctor-recommended. Do not be caught unprepared. Look, we live in strange times, and you want to be ready. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and for their loved ones during the unexpected. Jase handles everything from online evaluations to license, pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. Look, go check them out. Just go give them a chance right here, jasemedical.com. I think you'll really be impressed with this company and what they are providing. Get $20 off these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using my code LOCKEDON. That's one word, locked on, at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Go check them out. Use promo code LOCKEDON. So, Jimmy, Connor Weigman out for the year from Texas A&M. It was just yesterday that I was reading, okay, he's out 2 to 4 weeks, which I was thinking, okay, he's probably out a week and a half and he'll be ready for Alabama, and he'll have this, Willis Reed moment where he comes out and just slings it all over the yard against us. But he's out for the year. So that means Texas A&M, I mean, is this the 3rd year in a row that we will technically be playing the backup? Because Zach Calzada was the backup, was he not? And then last year we actually played Weigman, and he was the backup. And
Haynes King played last year, right?
Oh, Haynes King, sorry. But wait a minute, was Haynes King the starter from the jump, though?
I don't think he was. I think Haynes King sort of took over from somebody.
That's right. Weigman played later. Haynes King did get hurt that year.
He did.
But maybe I can't remember what Texas A&M situation was, but regardless, I thought
regardless, Weigman was going to be the best A&M quarterback we had played against in a long time.
That's right.
In my opinion, he was leading the league in QBR. Just a true sophomore on an NFL trajectory. 5-star recruit. Weigman was a big deal, and he wasn't playing well in the first half against Auburn. That's when he broke his foot, apparently. So he's out, and that's good news for Alabama. I mean, in this sense. Yes, Max Johnson is probably the most experienced and best second-team quarterback in this league. That's probably true. And Alabama will not be playing a substandard or terrible SEC quarterback when we play Max Johnson and Texas A&M. But Max Johnson's not as good as Connor Weigman, and I'm going to go by Jimbo Fisher's opinion on that. Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino were starting Connor Weigman and not Max Johnson. So it is a bit of a boost, a reason for me to change my pick. All along I've been saying I think I'm going to pick A&M to beat Alabama. I'm not sure. I'm not sure anymore. I'm not positive how I'm going to pick that game. I need to see Alabama play Mississippi State on the road, and I need to see Texas A&M play Arkansas in Arlington.
Well, I think you also predicted that all along in the summer, but you also predicted Alabama to beat Texas. So what I'm saying is maybe we've already had that loss that you were thinking we were going to have.
Yeah, well, I thought A&M was the most likely loss on the schedule because it was the best team Alabama would play on the road. I was really concerned about Texas based on where it was in the schedule because I was concerned Alabama wouldn't have its quarterback situation ironed out. And boy, that pretty much hit that on the nose. I still think 11-1, so I'm back leaning towards Alabama beats A&M. But hey, I want to see. We started this show talking about Alabama's road woes. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And Alabama didn't play well on the road in Tampa again, offensively. And I'm going to have to see Alabama play well on the road in Starkville before I can get on board with picking Alabama to beat Texas A&M because I have an official forecast now. It's kind of like going from a weatherman to a meteorologist. I've always been a weatherman, but now at BOL I'm a meteorologist. So I've really got to get this right now.
One other thing I wanted to throw out there, and this was courtesy of AL.com. They were talking about how I didn't realize this, that the last 2 weeks have stopped the 2 longest streaks in the nation of scoring 20 points or more. Last week we stopped Ole Miss. They were on a 39-game streak of scoring 20 points or more, it was 20 points or more. And the week before, when we only scored 17 against South Florida, we had the longest streak, I believe, in or at least in SEC history at 60, and we only scored 17. So you're right. I'm worried about the road a little bit, especially considering, South Carolina. Now, here's what's interesting. Mississippi State played like bunk against LSU at home and didn't score much of anything. They go on the road to South Carolina, and they just light up the scoreboard. Now, they ended up losing both games, but just interesting to me. Hopefully, I'm really believing, Jimmy, and mark my words, I really believe the pass to Jalen Hill for the touchdown where Milroe gets hurt. I mean, it's like a perfect storm. Hill makes a great catch, holds on to it as a true freshman, his first touchdown. Then Milroe throws a dime. He gets hit and comes up and is enthusiastic afterwards. I feel like that's the turning point for this offense. I'm really hoping I'm right.
I don't disagree with that at all. And I think you might be right. I think that might be a moment, but I'll say it's football. And Jalen Milroe is still inexperienced compared to every other quarterback, every other starting quarterback in the SEC. I think Jalen Milroe is on an upward trajectory. And by that, I mean, here's a kid who's getting better. And I think he's going to get better and better and better. I really do. But football trajectories aren't linear. I think Milroe is going to get better, but there's going to be some rabbit holes, some detours, some potholes. It's not going to be perfect all the time. And because he's been mistake prone in the past, I think there will be an overreaction to it every time. I think every time there is an obvious mistake, there will be an outcry because he's been mistake prone to this point. But I think he's on an upward trajectory and improving as a football player. And at some point, Luke, maybe it's this Saturday, I think at least one game this year, he has a monster. I see that coming. I'm talking about the throw for well over 300 and rush for over 100 multi-touchdown game against a good opponent. I think that's coming.
I want to save it, not for Mississippi State, but that's me.
You don't need it to beat Mississippi State. How about this? If I'm picking out a game where I think that could happen, let's go maybe Tennessee.
Okay, I'm down with it. Just not Mississippi State or Chattanooga. Isn't it Chattanooga right before Auburn? Yeah. Anyway,
Chattanooga's before Auburn. Don't want to waste it on Chattanooga. You don't need that to beat Mississippi State this weekend. You just need to stop the run and run the ball. That's what will win this weekend. And when we make our picks on the next show, which is the prediction show, my prediction is going to be focused on, can Alabama run the ball and stop the run?
All right, buddy. We'll talk again tomorrow. Until then, roll tide.
Roll tide.